Members of the jury, at the outset, the court wishes to take this opportunity of thanking the jury for the cooperation to the court for coming here early this morning and at other such times that the court requested that the jury be in the courtroom. It is because of the cooperation of the juries that we have in New York and Bronx counties that we have been able to move our calendar and to do substantial justice to those who come into our forum. Now, the court also desires to thank the prosecuting attorney and the attorney for the defendant. I know both of these gentlemen well. I want to thank them for the courteous and respectful manner in which they each conducted themselves. I wish to say to you that they tried this case to the best of their ability, which is the duty of any lawyer who steps into the trial of a case. However, we are not trying the lawyers in the case. We are trying an issue in which the parties are the people on the one hand and the defendant on the other. And the determination must be on the evidence and on the law fairly, justly, and impartially to each party. Members of the jury, we have reached that point in this case where it becomes incumbent upon the court to charge you with respect to the applicable law that governs a case of this character. Now, you members of the jury must have become familiar with the fact, those of you who have served before, that we are both the judges in a very real sense. Members of the jury, whether you find the defendant guilty or not guilty of felony murder, either way, you will then proceed to consider the crime of common law murder. Follow me? Whether you find a motive or not, that is, a motive for a killing, is unimportant. A motive is not an element of any of the crimes that I will submit to you. You need not find a motive. That is not any element of any of the crimes. Now, coming to the common law murder, that count reads, the defendant in the county of New York on or about April 14th, 1982, with intent to cause the death of police officer John Mills, caused the death of police officer John Mills by shooting him with a pistol and thereby inflicted various wounds upon him, and thereafter on or about April 20th, 1982, said police officer John Mills died of said wounds. Common law murder is an intentional killing. Felony murder is a killing committed during the course of the commission of a crime. So now we are talking about common law murder, an intentional killing. Now, as far as applicable to this case, the penal law defines common law murder as follows. A person is guilty of murder when, with intent to cause the death of another, he causes the death of another. Simple as that. Now, under this subdivision, there is no requirement that the people prove or establish that the killing was the result of any premeditation or deliberation. That is not necessary. All that the prosecution must show beyond a reasonable doubt is that a defendant intended to cause the death of another, and he, in fact, did cause the death of that person. So the essential elements of the crime, which the people must establish beyond a reasonable doubt, are first, it must be established that it was the defendant who shot Officer Mills. Secondly, that the wounds inflicted upon him at that time caused the death of Officer Mills. And finally, it must be established that if the defendant did, in fact, shoot Officer Mills, causing death, that he personally caused the death of the officer. Now, I have used the word intent several times. You will have to determine what the defendant's intent was, if any. If you find that he committed either of these acts, intent is a mental operation. Therefore, you can't see it. It is the secret, silent operation of the mind. Now, since it is a subjective element, it normally might be difficult to determine what was in a person's mind in a time in the past when it was alleged that a crime was committed. Its objective physical manifestation is the accomplishment of the thing decided upon. What does that mean? Very simple. I said intent is a subjective element. How do you determine what that subjective element, that intent was? You determine it from its objective manifestation, from what you see produced. For example, A hits B over the head with a sledgehammer, causing a fractured skull. What was his intent when he did that? Now, a jury must be justified in saying that from the objective manifestations, from what A did, striking this man over the head with a sledgehammer, his intent was to cause serious physical injury. And if B were to claim that he was merely testing the hammer, you, as reasonable jurors, would be entitled to conclude that that is not the ordinary way that you test a hammer. And you would be justified in saying his intent was not to test the hammer but to cause serious physical injury. So you decide what his subjective element was, what his intent was from what you saw, the objective physical manifestation of what he did. It's as simple as that. Now, the statute says that a person acts intentionally with respect to a result when his conscious objective is to cause that result or to engage in that conduct. It's a deliberate or willful act, as distinguished from some mistake, careless negligence, or accident. Now, the law permits you to infer that every person is presumed to intend that which is natural, the normal, or the inevitable consequences of his own voluntary act, if in fact he did anything, so that you, the jury, have the right to find from the results of a defendant's acts his intention to accomplish that result.
A little too fast.
200.